Hello, so I wanted to kind of talk about the upcoming Pluto and Aquarius transit, but specifically about what came to me as like one of these, what I call like just wonderful insights, that it's like a download about how Pluto, of course, as we know, is yes, transiting, but Pluto is, of course, as the planet of change or inner core change. And I actually took some notes here. So, as you can see, based on what I was talking about, these, when it comes to postings, it's kind of like food for thought. You can call it that way, right? So, if you think about the ages, back, so we're in what we call the Aquarian age, but because what I came to realize is looking at the numerology behind it. First of all, is that based on, if you look at the Chaldean order of the planets, it's basically what they use in horary astrology about how each planet has its own co-significator or significator, and then you have your, I'm still new to horary, and it also has like the planet that has this joy in it according to Lily. And you'll see a picture here, right here, either one, and it kind of shows you the joys of what they are, and kind of makes you weird. Okay, so, and kind of ties in with what we're going through, because if we're looking at the Piscean Age, if we were to also include the Decans, you see the Decans is like usually applies to your sun sign or where the sun was. So Pisces is, first of all, Neptune, Pisces, and the first 10 degrees of the degrees, 30 degrees in each sign. And then you have the next 10 degrees, which is after you look into the next sign, technically that's what it is, right, Neptune. And then you go into the next sign, which is after Pisces, which would be Cancer. So Moon, more lunar Pisces, more emotional Pisces, more open to susceptibility, more introverted, a lot more introverted Pisces, not so much like the typical, very much explorative, very magical Pisces, a little bit more earthy type of Pisces. And then you have the last part, which is, of course, through Scorpio, which is then makes it a Plutonian Pisces, so more intense, more about obsession, more about power struggles, more about everything that is very Plutonian. Okay, so, but when I looked into the Chaldean, I don't know how to pronounce it, Chaldean order of the planets, we looked at the joy, what houses, Pisces was, Pisces is in the 12th house, right? We looked at, it's actually, what is this one here? I saw that it is Saturn is in, here we go, sorry. You can see in the picture I posted, I think I'm gonna look, yeah, so Saturn feels Saturn is in joy, so I don't know how to describe this one. Again, this is all late Middle English book. The way they spoke was very late Middle English, but so I keep losing my, okay, here we go. So a lot of it was about structure and order, especially in the last, let's say, third of the 2,000 years. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, I wrote some notes here, and I said, looking at all things that we've gone through when it comes to things like technology, as we approach the Aquarian age, which is air, right? It's meant to be lighter, right? Air is meant to be light. It's about transmission. It's about communication. It's about communication, like I said, relationships, sort of like connection, right? It's that energy of connecting. I guess you can call it transmission, either way. Oneness even, okay? But also lightness and flow. So, and of course, the shadow behind that might be that you have a more over communication, over objectivity, egoic knowledge rather than actual wisdom, egoic wisdom itself. What you might call wisdom, right? Projecting to those who don't know And it's like, oh, you don't know this, you don't know this, and like whatever, you're not that good, and you're like whatever, right? So it kind of ties in with the thing that it can, the shadow that it's picked up from, it possibly can pick up from Capricorn. Okay. So what I mean by this is really, for those who are not really clear about this, what I mean by this is that, you know, every sign, like I said in one of my older videos, every sign carries on from the previous sign and on its way to progression, on its way to evolve, to grow, it grows into the next sign. Yeah. I might post a link on that video somewhere here. If I don't, I'm sorry. Overly abstract, that's one of the other shadows. Overly abstract or over abstraction, carelessness. Guys, it's not really caring more about things, more like, or distancing rather, further being kind of apart, because it's very, you know, Aquarian, typical Aquarian as well. Anti-socialness, anti-sociability, I don't know. Okay. And then I wrote here that ironically, when it comes to the past 2,000 years, or 500 at least, we've been under this delusion that one thing is enough. You know, one sort of aspect is, this is method, this way, this way. It's very much like, sort of like very focused and very much kind of like that Plutonian sort of thing that I would say applies to the ages as well. Okay. So now we've come to that point where we need to realize that there are countless examples of the past that constricted and restricted that flow, right? That earthiness. So that it sort of ties in with Saturn a little bit more like Capricorn, because it, as Saturn does fit into that 12th house. So the 12th house is ruled by Pisces. For me, it does tie in to that energy of Pisces, which is like secrets, hidden things, quietness, passivity, pacifist, kind of very, it's not about Neptune itself. Again, you know, when you look at the planets and the houses and the sign, they're all quite different from each other, but they do have commonalities. Okay. And so to go past that, I wrote here, however, so even to be lighter or faster, more efficient. So I had to take notes on this. I had this feeling that I had to take notes on this, and lo and behold, it's because today I had lunch, and usually I work better without, when there's no food in the stomach. So it's just more, the brain is busy digesting. So pardon my you know, so again, so lighter, faster, probably even better, even with communication, okay, abstraction, talking, etc. You know, those still can be, those were dense, those were quite dense, and the way people talked, it was very like one-sided, it was very like this way or my way or my way or the highway, very like, it's all methodical. Right? And in a way, though, the ages seem to flow in reverse. Okay, we were to base it on the typical flow of the signs. Of course, you know, it's counterclockwise, whereas the ages go clockwise. Okay, so we've come in a sort of way. We're coming from that sort of almost Capricorn age sort of feel, or rather Saturnian age in some way. Again, because of the 12th house and based on the Chaldean order, Chaldean, whatever, of Saturn being in place at home or in joy with the 12th house. Now into the Aquarian age, based on the Chaldean order, the planet that finds joy in that sign is Jupiter. So it's about expansion, it's about growth, it's about feeling like we can do anything, it's about having faith, it's about furthering, really, it's about having, yeah, a personal belief in yourself, also general beliefs, like that's why it's also doctrine is also part of this as well, or having some sort of dogmatic thing. It's a sort of very belief sort of thing. Again, it does tie in with a Sagittarius, except again the signs are quite different. Okay, and so it also ties in with this whole 11th house thing, right? 11th house is this co-significator, or the house that it's in, that Jupiter is in. It's let me go back here. Again, like I said in previous notes, previous videos, I take a lot of notes, so it takes a while for me to look at them. I don't like typing things or like writing things on paper. It's harder for me to read, and it's just like so Jupiter is in joy in the 11th house, which is already the Aquarian age, which is ruled by Aquarius. The Sun is there, is the co-significator of that house, which is also ties into that whole, it's a new ideal, it's a new idea, identification, it's a part of a shift in identification, growing into that. And it's because, the Sun, if you look at the Sun, it technically rules the 5th house through Leo. And at that, when I believe that's when we discovered the ego, when the part of humanity started going, oh, there's I am this, I have this, I own this, I don't have this, right? So, and I believe it does tie into one videos I want to show later on from a different post in a different post, but it was a video recording of Eckhart Tolle talking about I believe something more than that. Anyways, I digress. So let's continue. So with the restrictions of Earth substance, so to speak, in this case, that Pluto in Aquarius coming in through, which is what is going to come through in November 20, okay, is in itself like a test. I say it's like kind of like a Saturn, right? Because Saturn is also called the teacher, right? It guides us to be present when in fact, like, for example, like when I'm not present, I get into accidents. Like I have Mars in Sagittarius. But that's for another time. Like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like Mars in Sagittarius. I have its square moon in Aquarius. So there's a sort of nervous energy that comes through because I'm very heightened senses, very sensitive. 8th house, traditionally speaking, rules house. It's a house of fear. So there's a lot of like sensitivity to the environment, especially with moon there, which is magnetism, your senses, the touch sort of thing, not necessarily body, but vibrations, right? So the ultimate direction here is lesson or growth is to be well-rounded to this 3D experience, right? So in other words, how we progress, right? I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show The Last Avatar with Avatar Aang, right? Aang actually in the story eventually had to learn and work with all the elements. He was an airbender, and then next thing he learned was water, and then came earth and then fire. He had a hard time with earth. It was the opposite of that. Kind of ties in with kind of a little bit of like a shadow, right? Sort of, not really. But the point is that it's the same thing that happens to anything and everything and everyone. So that we have to work through those things. We have to learn through those lessons. So it goes both ways and all ways. Now comes the more intuitive part here, because it's I just took these notes, and then I was just like, okay. It just came to me because it was like, oh, yeah, as a Pluto is going to Aquarius, okay, it makes sense, but Pluto was further back into like past, at least we're still experiencing it through the age, so to speak. I don't know if you sense that. It's like a lot of transformation going through, and especially because we're coming from Piscean Age, which is just a transitionary sign. It's mutable, it's malleable, so therefore it's always, the mutable signs they always represent also transition. So they're kind of, because they're weaker, so to speak, they're kind of like more flexible into the next stage of things. So here it is. I'm going to share this screen here. Alright, so hopefully you can see this one. Let me take out this markup here. We're going to just look into Pluto, how it goes into Aquarius. So as you can see, November 20, this Pluto will be fully in Aquarius. many people say, I personally thought that Pluto is going to go into Aquarius just like this year, but I was like, no. I definitely had to look it up. So it was around November 20, literally like a midnight. I looked it up. I'm not sure if it's a few seconds or minutes before midnight, but either way, it's by midnight of November 20, at the very least, Greenwich time, and Pluto will be in Aquarius, and it'll be fully there. It's going to be, once it's in Aquarius, it's going to have some retrogrades next year, I believe. Yeah, I saw some, and it's just going to be in Aquarius itself. It's not going to go back to Capricorn. So this full change that's going to happen, I kind of wanted to investigate this. This is why I'm making this post. So let's take a look. Okay, Pluto is right there. Okay, I love how this happens. It never goes back to what it was before, and that's totally fine. It's okay. Not gonna complain. Okay, so we have Pluto technically conjunct. I would say this is conjunction because it's 6 degrees. Ceres. They don't show it in the other ones, but I'm quite rebellious this way. I'm just like, fuck it. But Ceres is going to be conjuncting anyways. It's going to be towards Pluto eventually. So that means that transformation of how we express or how we find our own inner, like, nurturing side, our ability to give unconditional love. And more than that, it's going to be how we're going to basically start to kind of feed our basic needs emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically as well. It's more than the moon. It is a higher vibration of the moon, but there is also a higher vibration of Ceres, which is it Haumea? No, Sedna. Sorry. And Sedna is like far off, like fucking planets, like way over there. Okay, the furthest one that's been discovered recently. I'm not going to go into the math. I don't really like doing the math, to be honest with you, but I do sometimes. I do the math, but it's kind of boring to kind of talk about the math. Like I don't do that. So it's going to be opposite the moon. So you have this at the very least on the first few days of November 20. It's going to be opposite the moon. So it's going to be a lot of emotional balancing with what we need and trying to figure out what it is that we really want. And Pluto will slowly, because it's generational, the effects of it won't be felt as much, but it is there where it's trying to reveal to us what is real. What is it going to be like? What is this, especially with Saturn, with Ceres going to in Capricorn? Eventually it'll be in the critical degrees later on, but for now it's not really critical. But it's still going to have an effect on the fact that it's kind of going to get a little bit more intense. It's going to be a little bit more concerned with how the environment affects us on an actual cellular level. So watching out also for, because this is a conjunction, we will be taught how to. We're learning, or we're going to learn how to work with this energy. We're going to learn how to work with this transformational energy. A lot of regeneration, a lot of people going into probably like a necessary, helpful isolation to regenerate, to balance that with how we see everything else in the world. Because it's like, in this case right here, moon is in Cancer. Okay. But moon is also, it's right at home in Cancer here. That means we'll know how to work with those emotions, but with the intensity that's coming through in society and all that stuff, there might be fears behind, because this ties into Ceres, so that means that it's epigenetics apparently. So how the environment, so it could be any sort of lawlessness, any sort of power struggles, crimes, narcissism possibly as well. Just the environment, how the tension of the intensity of the environment or people itself, also the public, how we'll come across people who are either one of those. But we will be taught how to work with that energy of seeing what that affects, how that affects us. Do we stay away from the negative stuff? Do we learn how to deal with it, or do we just allow it to completely like devour us? Right? There's going to be a lot of power struggles with. I would say the public is still there because Ceres is in Capricorn, so it is a lot of that. The last bits of nurturing of formation, structures, materialism. People might be looking towards still satisfying themselves with material things. It could be anything from food to wealth to money to possessions, any of those kind of things, and things that will probably feel like I need to do this, otherwise I won't feel rich. But going into that, because we're going to have two planets, we have two planets here conjuncting. One is in one sign and one is the other one. One will behave like it's going to need to go there, but then the other one will kind of like either somewhat support it but not also support it. In this case, Pluto will be supporting it, but it will be like the hard-ass like teacher. The one that is, it's not a teacher. The Pluto is not about teaching. Pluto is about how do you find your inner power? What is your inner strength? How are you working with that? What is power? Do you feel power is gaining things, possessions, obsessing, raping, you know, I don't know, you can say anything you want, whatever it is. You could be fighting with other people, power struggles, overpowering people, abusing others, misusing power, you know, being controlling, hoarding, possibly. Okay, that might be an issue too, as well, because of the moon as well is there with Cancer. So there's people might have this feeling of like hoarding, or just energy of like I need to feel safe. Right, Ceres is also about that, but with it conjunct Ceres, I would conjunct Pluto, we will know how to do that, but the moon there is going to go, it's going to highlight that and be like, okay. Right, so further, when the moon goes into the critical degrees of Cancer, that's when the energy will become quite strong. And it'll definitely be like a really push towards either balancing intensity and truth and genuineness with emotional, physical, spiritual, material needs. Right? Do you have enough, or do you want to keep going? You know, those kind of questions you want to ask. Then we'll have also 0 degrees, square. It's definitely going to square with Haumea. Also with Juno, this Haumea conjunction with Juno is going to be one of, because it's in Scorpio, Haumea is the ability to also, it's kind of like Pluto, which is like the ability to be creative and trusting in your own inner guidance of your own inner nature. But I'm going to go further back into what I wrote here. Okay, so try finding true meaning, but it's also more than that. Let's look at Philip Sedgwick's stuff. This is quite short. Okay. Soulful confidence, unshakable partial inner knowing, creative, regenerative, and able to reconstruct, redefine, transform, especially regarding consciousness, willfulness, and restoring rock-solid integrity. So a lot of self-fostering, a lot of like feeling like you have a lot of, I guess you can say, fertility in yourself. It's a soulful fertility, so to speak, right? And that commitment to that with Juno there being about loyalty and being able to stand your ground and committed to this direction of, you know, especially with the inner power, because here we have Scorpio and Pluto will be ruling these two signs because it's of Scorpio right here. Right, so I mean, Pluto will be ruling Haumea and Juno here. So it has that effect of, there's that intensity about it. With its square, of course, the Pluto and Ceres are eventually going to be squaring Ceres. It's going to be wondering how we're going to find our own inner creativity and how we work with that energy, especially with the two signs of Scorpio and Aquarius. It's going to feel like, how do we know? Do we just ignore emotions? Do we just forget about going deep, or do we just, so it's going to make us quite aware of how we're being, how we're trusting our own inner guidance. Okay, because that rock solidness might be shaken up by, but especially with Pluto and Aquarius here, and Uranus will be ruling Pluto, and Uranus right here will still be in retrograde in Taurus. So Uranus is there to shake things up with Taurus. In other words, like I guess you can say basic stuff like a possession, anything that represents self-worth, anything that feels like this is my thing, this is kind of my thing, this is my possession, this is things that are pleasing, things that are simple, things that are very down to earth. It's shaking things up continuously because it's in retrograde, and this is energy of like, when is this? It's really highly unpredictable. So people might start to either you kind of lose something, or you find it again, or you don't know where it is, or there's confusion, and there's it does tie in a lot with electricity. So I would say electrical gadgets, electrical possessions. So anything with cell phones, computers, laptops, circuit lines, all those things. But how that ties in on a personal level is your own ability to accept the changes when you think you've had a foundation, or it's like you feel rock solid, right? So the trine there is going to be, in a way, it's going to be supportive of the Pluto energy, which is intensity. It's going to be, is it actually trine? I'm going to think about it. Yeah, it's going to be trine. Sedna is there too. Sedna is already in Gemini. So Sedna here is going to be allowing us to work with, like, being okay with it. Sedna is showing us here to be more undoubtedly like forgiving and allowing, and really, how do I describe this one? Okay, how we're going to learn how to have clarity in terms of what we perceive, recognition of free will and choice, responsible, conscious of consequence, anything Dharma oriented. Okay, so this is Sedna. Sedna will be showing us new things and new knowledge and experiences, but at the same time, where Uranus is concerned, is going to be shaking that up and saying, well, here you go, you have this, but maybe that's not what you need, right? Maybe your ideal of possession isn't necessarily possession. It could be your own inner worth, right? What is your inner worth? Sorry, see, this is what happens when you have lunch before a reading. So with that trine there, we'll work with that energy. But when there's a transiting planet, for other transiting planets in that day, if you looked at this as a birth chart, and you have other transiting planets, you'll see that this energy will change, and you're going to be kind of like, in a way, also, because the trine is very comfortable, right? Trine is there to show us that it's like, oh, this is easy go, this is harmonious, we can do this easily. Okay, we'll know how to work with this intensity and this sort of shakingness, or these changes that are happening. But sometimes we might expect too much of it, and sometimes we might end up going, what, really? Stable? so I don't know how to also explain that energy, but it's like we will start to work with this, we'll start to eventually feel like this instability is sort of like the new norm in a way. At least that's what it's showing me here. Okay. And with Ceres there, again, it tells a lot to do with finding your own inner guidance, your inner mother, inner parent, with your inner child, and balancing that and feeling like, oh, I can nurture myself, I can be my own parent, I can be self-sufficient, Okay, a lot of self-sufficiency as well probably will come through, with new knowledge is coming through, or new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of communicating as well, with how what we possess, especially starting there at least. Again, though, with the square to Haumea, it's working with that, and sometimes we kind of feel like maybe we're going to doubt that and say, where do our loyalties lie? Juno isn't just about loyalty, it's also about figuring out, being more discerning and figuring out which area of life do I marry myself to, or do you even have to? You know, it's in Scorpio, so it's ruled by by Pluto here. So that means that it's going to make us question what loyalty is. Do we even have to be loyal to anything else? Is it something more abstract that we need to be loyal to? So it's also going to be opposite of Mars, as you can see here. This opposition to Mars is going to be this is in Leo. Okay, Mars is going to be there for a while, of course, but it is conjunct Varuna. Once it's basically conjunct Varuna, it is already conjunct Varuna. I don't know why there's no conjunct sign there, that aspect. Possibly because it's a dwarf planet. Well, I wonder why. That's interesting. Because to me, conjunct is like 8 degrees at most. A conjunct orb is 8 degrees at most. So, I don't know. Anyways, Mars opposite Pluto there is going to be a lot of, power struggles for sure. Pride involved there, with being oneself, being one with society, or being one with oneself. Probably a bit of conservatism versus liberalism. A lot of opposition between, one side is going to be focused a lot on innovations and new things, but the other side is going to be like, I don't know, it's confusing. So there's going to be a lot of possibly we have to basically realize that there's going to be opposition, and we have to come to agreement with both sides. We have to be more and say, okay, well, what don't you understand? What do you not agree with? What is it that is against your own, your pride? What is it? How are people going to be affected? What is it? So ego is going to play a role here as well. It's going to be coming in and be like, okay, people don't want to do this because maybe things aren't moving as fast, or maybe the opposite. Things are moving too fast, right? With Aquarius being ruled by Saturn, also not just Aquarius. If we looked at Saturn, Pisces will be here. Right, it's going to create a lot of confusion, and it might. When I say it is, I mean it might. You always want to say might when it comes to astrology. Pam Gregory said that something about astrology is a language of something. It's not certainty, and it's not meant to be a certainty. What certainty comes from your decisions, what we do with the choices we make. Okay. What else do we have here? Do we have any quincunx? No. Okay, let's look at the other picture here, the other chart. Let's see. So I like working with I didn't write things down because every time I write things down, I kind of just forget them, and then it just kind of gets lost, and then there's no flow. And eventually things will come out more naturally as we move along. Is this the right chart? Let's take a look. November 20. Okay, so Osiris will be conjuncting Pluto here, along with Ceres there. You probably didn't see it, or based on the previous one. Ceres is right here, somewhere here. Again, I have to thicken that so you can really see it. Make it black. Okay, so this right here, you have this conjunction of Osiris. So things are ending. Okay. But I would say ending of things that are social structures, certain communities, and with the intensity of Pluto coming in there, it's going to make it a little bit more intense. Okay, I will say a lot more intense. And it's going to make things as if it's like, okay, because remember how we said that, what is this one? There was also, what was that? Oh, it's because of Ceres there on the other side here. So Pluto will be in between the two of them, so it feels like it's going to be things related to the environment and how it changes our own, you know, potentially changes our own DNA. That one of those things is going to be the endings of certain things. Here, because Ceres will be about material things and structure and order, and probably also the destruction of ego, with it going into Pluto. Osiris will reveal social, possibly like social ego, right? Social collective ego, okay? And how we deal with that in a very honest way with ourselves and truth. Okay, so I kind of cut off right there, but that's all I can say for that one. It's also going to be Cerberus. Okay, so this Osiris square Cerberus is responsibility that's not really our own. So we think we're responsible for something, but really we're not. Let me put some lotion in this spot right here. So with Cerberus there in Scorpio, so power will be like truth that is like, or power, or sort of like we feel that risk taking, that we feel like maybe we might take risk on certain things that we feel like we should take risk on, but really isn't worth taking the risk because we feel like maybe we're responsible for it. We feel like we need to be in control, but not really. So with that coming into, it's moving away from Pluto, but it's going into Osiris. But Osiris will be, Pluto will be conjuncting Osiris, so that square will still be there. So the Osiris will be this, like this role it's going to play is to figure out what, for us to figure out what death means. And it's time to kind of looking at it, like time to look at it seriously and say, okay, well, what is death? Are we still afraid of it? Are we, what are we going to do with it? Right, so that's so far what I'm seeing. It definitely has a lot to do with a death or ending of things with society. Let me look further into Osiris here. So here I came to call it as, it's the urge to or have kind of a backup where you process and learn from weakness. Okay, because even though Osiris reveals like the dead, basically, or afterlife, or renewals, it's very Plutonian as well. It's kind of Plutonian, but and it is transformation. But it's also about figuring out how do we get back up from that? Because death is very, very traumatic, right? With Pluto there, it's going to be a reminder of like, you know, trauma is worse than adversity. Trauma is probably one of the highest forms of adversity that we think is adversity. But if we play the victim role, it's not going to help. Right? We have to be able to find a way to find an inner strength. This is why I called Pluto is about regeneration. This is why it's also called, it's Hades. So it's time to process things inwards. Time to kind of look into it, really look into it in deep. Have it, dive deep, like really fucking deep. Okay, it's still going to be in opposition to Setho. I forgot what that is. Theseus. Okay, that one I did not. Okay, I did not expect that or anticipate that. Ah, Set. Is that Set? Did I get that right? Okay, must be Set. I'm not going to go into that one because I don't want to be giving information. So Lucifer is going to be opposite that. Nope, but it's not Cancer. It doesn't apply here. Don't worry about it. Let's look at the other. What else is there? Pluto rules. Okay, we talked about Uranus there. Okay, and go to this one. Okay. Ah, okay. Ooh. Okay. And wait, no. Ah. Perfect. Okay. Well, and this is also the time when, well, Shapley Attractor will still be there. The Shapley Attractor, according to Philip Sedgwick, is so far the largest out of the 4 black holes. So it's a lot of energy that's going to be drawn towards it. So that means that when it comes to an individual level or collective level, there's going to be something that we're drawn to, specifically with it being Scorpio. So like what's real, what's behind the scenes. And because it's going to be squaring Pluto, or rather Pluto is going to be squaring Shapley Attractor, it's going to be revealing a lot of things that are hidden, I would say. Okay, a lot of things that are a lot more hidden than from the past, especially from, you know, the old structures of Capricorn there, of things that, you know, need to be revealed to and really come to the surface. That alongside with its opposition, Pluto's opposition to Mars, and actually Wald.Lilith there, and also the moon, it's going to be really about honing. People will eventually need to figure out what it is, what is personal need, what is personal desire, your willpower, how do we balance that with inner truth, and really coming to terms with all that. But it is because Mars is also going to be square Shapley Attractor, so a lot of wars, probably it's going to reveal why, maybe something to do with wars and why they're starting in the first place. I'm not really sure, but Mars here is going to be in Leo, so a lot of like the pride that we experience, like the sort of like what makes me better than you, what makes, you know, so not just power struggles, but like the pride within that makes us like, okay, well, I'm going to, this is me, and this is going to, so a lot of, so again, it's a lot of ego releasing, a lot of ego revelations. With Lilith there, it's going to be a drive towards more like, well, Lilith, Wald.Lilith is going to be conjuncting the moon, so that means true emotions and what we really want, figuring out, it's a higher vibration. Wald.Lilith is the higher vibration of Lilith itself, so it's going to be, what is it? I'm always itching. And it's going to reveal to us what is, yeah, what's basic, what do we need, that's like, it's your emotional needs, and what is the emotion itself, like what, I feel like with Pluto there, opposition to Pluto's going to pull us towards a real, like, coming to terms with not just collectively but individually, where we have to stop victimizing ourselves and saying poor me, ego. It's the opposite of Leo, right? So it's going to be more about how can we help each other, how can we contribute, but at the same time working on our own individual. And this is why, you know, Aquarius tends to be kind of distant, is because it tends to work on itself as well. It is co-ruled by Saturn, so a lot of it has a lot to do with like self-processing, processing our fears, processing our limitations, and how do we get past that and change. And so, and because it's in the 0 degrees, 1st degrees of Aquarius, it's going to be focusing on new perceptions of how do we be genuine. You know, that whole when you help other people, for example, one simple thing is like, you know, how you get over yourself is by helping others. But what that also means is trying to figure out what trauma you have in your past and how you can bring that to the elevation of society itself. Because society includes you as well in it. It sounds very socialist, but yes, that's what it is. And especially because Saturn is in Pisces, it has this sort of that softening effect to Saturn, and it's going to be a little bit more like, kind of like Neptune in a way, where it's like, it's more socialist, it's more, let's do it for all of us, right? I wonder where Eris is here, because Eris is, okay, Eris should be kind of conjunct still North Node here. I did not put that in, or did I put that in here? Yeah, I didn't put it in here, but I believe Eris is going to be, it's still conjunct North Node here, so the collective North Node. But that ties into Mars itself, how that rules Mars, and Eris is all about absolute joining. Okay, so absolute inclusion. I wouldn't say absolute, but yeah, that's kind of what she goes for. She creates chaos because it's like, let's break this fucking thing down. I don't want this one. It doesn't create cohesion, it doesn't create harmony. Think of the Borg. It's kind of like that. Eris is kind of like, in a way, creates chaos in order to create order. Yeah. And I think that's it. So with the, I'm not sure. The Shapley attractor there is going to be the pole. Specifically on that, it's going to feel like there's a lot of things that are going to be revealed from underneath, specifically pertaining to social structures, or social structures that were built from the previous sign. So that means that it's going to be a lot more, yeah, it's going to be shaken. And it's continuously going to be shaken anyways. It's going to be revealing things a lot more. Once there's been a crack in the shell, it's going to start leaking out. It's going to start being like, okay, here's the knowledge. And it ties in with the water barrier. Okay, so, and that's that for now. I'm not sure what else I could say about that. I'll see what else I can find, but that's it for now. I hope that was a bit of an insight. I know this video is quite long, but you know, fun. That's what I'm here for. Anyways, if you have any questions, you know what to do. Thank you for bearing with me. Have a blessed day. Have a very present day. I'll see you guys later.